Hello and welcome back to the Random New World tile creation tutorial. In this video we're going to be looking at how to make rivers on our river map. So, if you recall from last time when I was talking about the river map, you'll remember that we created this blank image in a very specific sort of indexing format which was just copied from one of the existing river maps already created by Paradox and shipped with the game. It's exactly the same size as our image, and it's just white. It's blank. For completionist's sake, we copied that into our master tile. And you see here we have Rivermap, which is just blank. In this video, we're going to make it not blank. We're going to start to paint some rivers onto our map. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is go into the default one and just place a placeholder river. And I'll show you why I do this in a second. I'm going to open up here. I'm going to go to, Tools. I'm going to go to, no, it's not Tools. It's Windows. Excuse me, it's Windows. Dockable Dialogues, and then Color Map. And this brings up the list of all the available colors in this image, which, as you can see, is not very many. So I'm just going to draw a little test river to see how you do this. And this one you might be able to notice isn't going to be very useful because I don't actually know here where the land is, where the topographical features are. This is just going to be a test to show you how you do it. So, first things first, I've got my pencil tool. I reduce the size of my brush down to a single pixel, which is 1. I go up here and I select this green color at the far left, and I put down a single pixel. That is our river spawn point. That's where it's going to flow from, and all rivers need to have one of these. And only one of these per river. I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab a light blue color. This is going to give you a very skinny river. And I'm going to draw a straight line like that, and I can move it around a little bit. Now you see here, there are breaks in my line, and I have to go in and fix those. This is part of the thing that makes river making really, really tedious, because you want to have these nice organic looking rivers where they have curves and stuff, but drawing that curve doesn't give you a continuous line. And so, unfortunately, the best method I've discovered is just to draw out some sketches of your rivers first, and then spend an unfortunate amount of time going in and just covering up all those little breaks that you get. Okay, so there's a decent river. Now I want to make it get gradually wider. So I'm going to put in a darker shade of blue. Remember, only use the colors up here. Those are the only ones available in this image. Darker shade of blue like that. Color it in. And finally, an even darker shade of blue. There we go. So that's river. That's how Paradox makes them work. A single 1 pixel long line, unbroken. It can change colors halfway through, but you have to make sure that it's a single line. It can't, and also, right, I can't have a square like this, where it's thicker than it's supposed to be. The river will stop there on the map if I have one of those, so look out for them also. So I'll just Control Z that. Alright, now what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy this whole thing in to my master document. So, here's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to activate my height map layer here, and I'm going to lower the opacity of it to about half. About 60%, say. And now I have a sense, when I'm editing my river map, of what the topographical features are like, and so I can draw rivers around them. So we can see pretty much right away that this river doesn't make a lot of sense. It follows this coastline here. Oh, yeah, speaking of coastlines, so something that's useful when drawing river maps is to give yourself a coastline. And the way I'm going to do that is something that you might have seen me do before. Well, you've definitely seen me do before. I'm going to take a threshold of my height map, so I can press Control-Shift-C to copy everything that's visible, create a new layer, drag this layer, oh no, I can't do it like that. Go to my background, create a new layer. There you go. So it's on the level of my groups here. So hide all this stuff for a second. Paste into this layer. That. Go up here Here's my layer. Looks exactly like my height map. Go to, yeah, colors, threshold, 95, because that means that everything above 95 will be land. Here's what our tile looks like. Perfect. I'll press OK, and I have this. What I'm going to do here is is go back to my river map and check what the exact height value for this gray that we're allowed to use is. And it's 122, 122, 122. So I'm going to go over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to color in this black with this 122, 122, 122 gray. And so now I can put this actually in my river map. And what I'll do is, so to make sure that we can keep using this little guy that we have here, I'm going to pull this up. If it'll let me. Usually you can do this, but yeah, when I use this video recording software, it doesn't seem to me like me doing this. Well, no matter. I'll just Control C this, create a new layer here within my river map. Let's call it layer. That's fine. It's only a placeholder anyways. Paste the gray and white image that I just copied. Anchor it to there. Alright, now it's where I want it. I can delete this layer because we don't need it anymore. And make my river map first and foremost. Now you'll notice that this thing, the river that I made there, has disappeared. That's because this image is on top of it in the layers. So what I'm going to do is I'll just delete all the white in the image so that this kind of functions as a cutout. Brilliant. Okay, and now for simplicity's sake, I'm going to merge this down. The way you do that is you go merge down, and now the two images are combined, like so. Okay, so now we have an idea of the shape of our tile, plus where our default river is, and now we can activate the height map again, bring it down to 60 or so % opacity, and now we have a very good idea where the shore is and where the mountains and stuff are, so we can draw rivers that make sense. So I'm going to go to my river that I made here, zoom in. Once again, Control Scroll usually does this, but my computer is being wonky. Let's make a river that makes sense. So we're going to leave that one there as a template. Let's make one that makes sense first. We can double back to that one and delete it afterwards once we have all of our colors. So you might be tempted just to use this tool and start picking the color that we have. So the reason you don't do that is because that picks the color exactly as you see it, which means darkened by our height map being over it. What you can do instead is use the eyedropper tool up here, I believe. Will it let me? And say, yes, sample merge is off. Set foreground colors. I'll say pick only. Yes, right. So it doesn't change this, but it does change your color that you have in foreground. So I'm going to say pick foreground color, like so. Here's another useful thing you can do. Once you have this color, you can press this button here, and it adds it to your color history, like so. And so now I don't have to keep using the eyedropper tool whenever I have that color. I can just pick it off my palette here. And I'm going to do that for the rest of the colors that I used. So I'm going to do it for this slightly darker blue. There you go. And this very dark blue. There they all are. I'm going to do it for the green, which is the start of the river. And you know what, while we're here, we might as well do it for the other two colors that'll be very useful for us. The red color, which is a split in the river. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So just color that in a little bit. And you notice here, we have the same palette as we did for our other image. So let's just add it from here. So we go like that, add to palette. And yellow using for creating deltas, we'll add that to our palette too. So now we've got all of our nice river making colors in the top here. Lovely. So we go back here, and hey look, they're still there. And so we can use those to draw rivers. And now that we have everything we need, let's delete this river here. Bit of a roundabout way to show you how this works, but that's okay. We want to set our eraser here to hard edge. Hard edge. So that we don't get any blurring happening. Okay, so let's draw a river. Um, so a nice way to do this, the way I like to do it. Ooh, that's a lot. That's too much. A little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, that's fine. So hydrology. If any of you guys have a basic idea how, the water cycle works, you know that rain comes off the ocean, it rains on the mountains. The mountains dump all of their rain. The rain flows down into little rivulets. Rivulets turn into bigger streams. They follow the path of least resistance. In doing so, they create nice little valleys because they erode, and then eventually flow it into an ocean or a lake in the middle of a desert, which just evaporates. So, looking at this map, we can see a couple places where you get a river. For instance, say you get rain across these mountains. They go like that. You can already see you have a bit of a valley there, so that probably has a river in it. And a valley here, so I imagine that has a river in it too. So let's put a river that runs right through there and out into here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to zoom in because we're dealing with individual pixels here. We have to be quite close to the action. I'm going to zoom in, and it looks like you got a bit of a, to number one, remember? Looks like you got a bit of a depression over here. So let's say that's where the river's going to start. So I lay down my starting point. I go to my palette and I bring out a small, the light color, which means you start with a small river. And I start drawing where I say it's going to go. It's going to come out of that little valley. It's going to go this way. Okay, very good. Looks like we're all linked up. Let's make the river get a little bigger, select a slightly darker shade of blue, remember from our palette. Goes and it goes and it goes. Color in the points at which it breaks. And let's just have it empty out into the ocean here as such. So, one thing to notice about rivers. When they end, which means you'll have a nice big river, but as soon as it runs out of river pixels here, it just stops, and that looks crazy on the map. So the best way to finish rivers is to have them go far into the ocean, which means that effectively they'll go underwater, stop being visible to you as the player, and end there. So that's what we're going to do with these. Okay, so now I got a nice little river flowing through that valley. And let's say, okay, look, if you look really closely, you see that this bit is a bit darker. So let's say you've got another river coming down from this mountain and joining up here. So how would we do that? Well, first and foremost, we're actually going to draw up from the river. That is mandatory, but it helps us keep track of what we're doing. Zoom in. Okay, so the way we do that, the way we create a connection to a river, is we take our red color here, and we plop it down where we want the two rivers to connect. Now, I recommend doing this where you have 2 pixels coming away. So let's say we put it, so the river's going to come down from this direction, right? It's always nice to have your connecting rivers connect to a place in the main river where there's 2 pixels going in the direction that the main river, that the secondary river comes from. That'll just make them join up really nicely, and you won't get instances where you just seem to have a river coming in at a complete right angle to the other one, which just doesn't look natural. You want to have like a coherent fork in the water. And the way that usually works in nature is that they sort of come together naturally. And this shows us, whoops, not there. And this, putting it right here, where you have 2 pixels in the direction that it's coming from, will make that look natural. So we put that there. And then we draw in our other river. And we can draw in the direction we draw doesn't matter. Just go like that. And then coming in, that's a bit too straight, I think. Like that. Oh dear, that's a lot we have to clean up. Okay, and then coming in. So you notice here we have a river is way too big. So I'm going to delete the parts where it's too large. Looking very carefully. And also with rivers, like the more complicated they are, the better, generally speaking. If you have like a completely straight river on the map, that just, it looks bad and it's immersion breaking because most of the rivers in the game don't look like that, for a good reason. Okay, so you notice that we didn't actually put a green dot up here, and the reason that is that this is a branch of the main river. So the green dot designates what is the main river. So anything that comes after it is the main one, and the red dots designate branches off of that main river. And I can put branches on the branches themselves. You can go as far as you like in that way, as long as they come to connect to the main river in a way that's sensible. Now, mind, I can't put a branch here, for instance, because that would interrupt the flow of the main river, and effectively what would happen is it would stop right there, and then this part of the river would flow inwards to it. So the flow of the water always comes out of the green and goes down until it ends. So what I'm telling the game here is, my river ends here, and oh, by the way, there's another river coming in this way towards it, and that's not what we want. Red dots indicate rivers coming in and joining the river. And I don't want it to end there, I want to keep going. I could just put one here, and that wouldn't be a problem. Let's say we want to have this turn into a delta. So we have another river splitting off from this river, but going in the same direction. What we do there is we use the yellow pixel and put one in exactly the same way that we did with this. It's not very visible here because of the height map, but if I close that for a second, it's still not very visible because it's yellow and white. You have to strain your eyes for those ones. Okay, so let's put in another shade of blue here. I'm going to create a delta flowing into the ocean here. I can just do it like that. Make sure they don't connect. If they connect without a yellow or a red dot, the game will get very confused. But leaving 1 pixel between them is enough. Oops. Okay, so there's our first river. It's not the most natural looking one, but it's good for a demonstration. Let's have another one coming down through here and connecting up with that delta there. So we're going to use a red dot, remember, because it's connecting to a river, so we don't have to put anything green here. So we have it come through this depression, maneuver out here. Let's have it join just as it enters the ocean. Generally speaking, when you have a delta, you want it to be at the end of a fairly significant river. Deltas on the scale that the game works at don't usually form unless you have a lot of sediment flowing down. So having a tiny river like this with a delta kind of looks silly, but it'll do as a demonstration. Okay, so this is basically all you need to know for creating a river. That's just how it works. Through the rest of this video, I'm going to fill out rivers through the rest of the map. I'm going to do it on a high speed just because it's tedious work, and I just want to get you a sense of how you would go about it. And if anything comes to mind, I'll just pause and give a little note. Okay, so let's speed up here. Okay, so here's something interesting. When you want to connect, remember how I said, oh shoot. When you want to connect one river to another using one of the red dots, the connectors, it's often wise to have it going in the same direction as the river already, so as in it connects to at least 2 pixels traveling the direction that it came from. If you look here, there's actually nowhere on our river that we can do that. If you want one coming this way, because if we do, say I put one here. Well, if I get my connecting river in here, all of a sudden we have too many pixels here, and the game won't know what's going on. It'll think that it's connecting from this way, but then again, it can't do that without a red dot. You'll get a glitch. So what I do here is, well, I'll have to get the white that's under here. So let me just hide our height map for a second. Grab the white base here, add it to our palette. I delete such that I can get a juncture, oh that's too dark. I can get a juncture like that, where there's room for my river to come in. It looks a bit strange in the Rivermap, but it works okay in game. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of rivers on our map, perhaps even too many, but it'll look cool. Okay, so how do we get these in game? Well, we just copy our river map over to our actual river map. Before I do that, I want to make absolutely sure that this doesn't have any transparency in it, because that would be weird when we copy it over here. So I'm going to hide the height map for a second and activate the province map, because remember, if this is transparent, we'll see everything under it, aka the province map. So open up the province map, and yeah, there we go. So we do have actually a transparent area here, which is where we put our last river, if you might recall. So a very simple way to fix that, just create another layer under this one, and we're going to make it white. Okay, come now. Move it down, and we'll just merge down here. There we go. Okay, so now there's no transparency here, you can see, because I have the province map on underneath it, and we don't see it. Okay, so let's copy this, Control C, and paste it onto our original river map. And there we go, much more complicated. We'll press anchor to overwrite what we had before, because we don't need that dummy river. And now go to File, overwrite my new tile underscore r.bmp. We don't have to do any settings with the export as, because the index image stays the same in each time. So this is very easy. Overwrite. Perfect. Okay, so now we have rivers on our tile. Let's see how it looks in game. Okay, so here we are in game. The RNW world has been generated, and look, there's our tile. It's sticking to the north, interestingly enough, once again. And here are the rivers that we just drew. This one's looking good. Now, you can kind of notice that in terrain map mode, it's been hard to make out where the rivers are. And ever since Paradox changed the political map mode for uncolonized terrain to be just normal terrain, pretty much the only map mode from the main menu that can let you see rivers pretty easily is diplomatic map mode. And there you go. Now we have a better view of what's going on here. So, the river that we drew in the valley came along nicely. In fact, we could probably even make it start earlier up here. Okay, so the other river that we wanted to connect to it just stops, and that looks unnatural. So let's double check back in Rivermap and see why that might be. Okay, so it comes in at an okay angle, but maybe it was just too sharp. So let's have this one just flow into the ocean instead. Something to remember. What else? Okay, everything else is looking good. Looks good. It's fine. Okay, so there's a glitch here. This one just stops, and I wonder where that is. That one. Yes. I missed a spot. So you can see that the river will just simply end if there isn't anything there. So let's change that. So, that's that. Let me come back. This one's just flowing into the sea, that's fine. So are these. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this. So let's fix those two errors. So let's make this one just go a little bit over and into the sea there. And you notice here I'm editing on the river map itself, because we can just copy and paste all the changes we make in here back onto the river map in our main file. So I'm going to do something like this out into the ocean. What are the changes I want to make? Oh yeah, okay, so up here I wanted to make this one flow a little bit farther into the mountains. But you can see that I don't really know where to put it on this image because I can't see the mountains. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this image back into our main file just so we can keep our rivermap there updated, and so we can make the changes we need to make with terrain in mind. So I'm going to press Control C. I'm going to go over to my main image here, press Control V with the rivermap image selected, and then press Anchor to overwrite it. Okay, zoom in a bit. Open up our height map again with opacity set, and yeah, we can kind of see where our river can go. So I'm going to put down a new starting point for it, just because we're going to overwrite that one. Put it, say, up here. Grab this color, overwrite the old starting point so the river goes all the way up here. Make sure everything hooks up nicely, and there we go. Okay, just double checking. Looks good. Alright, now let's copy this one back into our actual river map once again. Press Control V, anchor it. There we go. Our river's a little bit longer now. Overwrite our old river map. Once again, I'll do that again so you can see where it is. Overwrite my new tile _r.bmp. You could do it the long way. You go export as, then click the river map, press export, replace. You don't have to do anything. Right. But just pressing that overwrite shortcut, exactly the same process. Remember though, you can only do that for the river map and the height map when it's in the proper format. For the province map, right, you have to, every single time, you have to specify that it's 24 bits. You can't just do the overwrite province map in the way that we did here. But this method does work for the height map as well. Okay, so now let's go in game and make sure that our change is registered. Okay, so the game's loaded up and our tile is spawned in the south this time. You'll notice that we have more varied terrain than last time. In the south of the map here, you have the option to get deserts to the north and temperate to the south, and you can see how the terrain that's drawn follows pretty much exactly the provinces that we've drawn. So once we add more provinces to this in the next video, when we end up on like fault lines here where you get different sorts of terrain, the variance will be much more organic. Now let's take a look at our rivers. So you can see here, tile's in a bit of a different orientation, but we can still recognize the rivers we drew. So this one's now a little bit, starts a little bit higher as we liked, follows the contour of the mountain very nicely. As is this in the back here. For some reason the river that we drew here, that was supposed to separate off from this one, but we redesigned, isn't there anymore. Now let me just check why that might be. So here's a river map. And that's rather obvious, isn't it? We forgot to put in the start point. So there it is. I'm not going to do any more tests in this video just for sake of timing, but by and large, it looks like the rivers in this tile are good to go. I'm happy with them. I'm going to stick with them. There are other things that we have to do. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to conclude this video here. Now you know how to draw rivers and flavor your tile that way. Next video we'll be completing all the provinces in our tile and putting up the finishing touches for release. So thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you next time.